Hello, everyone. This is the Hispanic Patriot Podcast, broadcasting live from a secret, undisclosed location here in the heart of the great state of Colorado. My name is Nick Griswold, and without further ado, we have our fearless patron, Hugo Chavez Rey. Give it up for the Hispanic Patriots, everybody.
Welcome to another edition of the Hispanic Patriot Podcast, ladies and gentlemen. We have a pretty packed show for you tonight. We have an interview with a young up-and-coming Republican, Mr. James Wiley, who will be running for Secretary of State. So we'll have him on here in
against the infamous Jena Griswold.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, well, she's not running for that.
Take her spot at least,
Yep. So I'm your co-host, Hugo Chavez Rey, along with my intrepid young co-host, Nicholas Razzo. And as I mentioned, tonight we've got a packed show covering two major developments that could shape the future of Colorado politics and the Republican movement in this state. And as mentioned, we will have an interview with James Wiley, Republican candidate in the primary for Colorado Secretary of State. First, one of the most controversial political prisoners, that's our assessment, in modern Colorado history, Tina Peters will be walking free on June 1st as a result of a commutation of her sentence by Governor Jared Polis. That's an answer to prayer, folks. Reports indicate that former Mesa County clerk Tina Peters will be released from prison on Monday, June the 1st. And whether you see her as a hero, a whistleblower, or a convicted public official, there is no denying that her case has become a rallying cry for thousands of Coloradans who believe the justice system has been weaponized for political purposes. For many conservatives, the Tina Peters story was never just about one county clerk. It became symbolic of something much larger. The growing distrust in government institutions, election systems, and a justice system many feel no longer applies equally to everyone. Supporters argue that Tina Peters tried to expose vulnerabilities in election systems and paid the price for challenging the political establishment, led by none other than Jena Griswold. Critics say she violated the law and endangered election security. You decide. But regardless, whether where people stand or the intensity surrounding this case exposed a major divide in Colorado politics that Democrats and mainstream media have struggled to understand. And here's the reality. When large portions of the public lose confidence in transparency and accountability, dismissing those concerns as conspiracy theories only deepens the divide. Instead of restoring trust, Colorado leadership often responded with arrogance, censorship, and political intimidation. Tonight, we'll discuss what Tina Peters' possible release means moving forward. Does this close a chapter, or does it reignite a statewide conversation about election integrity, government overreach, and political prosecutions? At the same time, the Colorado GOP faces another defining moment this coming weekend. On May 30th, in Buena Vista, Republicans from across the state will gather for the special election to choose the next chairman of the Colorado Republican Party. State Central Committee members will gather to take that vote. At the moment, there are six candidates. But make no mistake, this is not just another internal party vote. This election could determine whether the GOP continues down the same fractured path that has led to repeated statewide losses, or whether party activists finally demand a serious course correction. Grassroots Republicans are frustrated. Donors are frustrated. County activists are frustrated. And many feel the party has suffered from weak leadership, infighting, poor messaging, and a failure to effectively challenge Democrat dominance at the Capitol. Colorado Republicans are asking hard questions right now. Why has the party struggled to unite conservatives across the state? Why are Democrats controlling nearly every major statewide office? And why do Republican candidates often lack coordinated support once primary season ends? And perhaps more importantly, who is actually willing to fight for Colorado instead of simply managing decline? The next chairman inherits enormous challenges: rebuilding trust, the party, improving fundraising, strengthening candidate recruitment, energizing Hispanic and independent voters, and finding a winning message in a state that has shifted dramatically over the last decade. But Republicans also have opportunities. Crime remains a top issue. Cost of living is crushing working families. Energy policies continue hurting consumers. Rural Colorado feels abandoned. Parents are increasingly frustrated over education and parental rights issues. And many independent voters are beginning to question whether one party Democrat control has gone too far. The question is whether Republicans can capitalize on that frustration or continue repeating the same mistakes. Tonight, we'll break down the stakes surrounding the Buena Vista chairman election, the key divisions inside the Colorado GOP, and why grassroots conservatives believe this may be one of the most important internal party battles in years. We'll also discuss what Tina Peters' release could mean politically heading into 2026 in November, and whether Republicans can turn concerns about election integrity and government accountability into an issue that resonates beyond the Republican base. Colorado is at a crossroads politically, culturally, and economically, and the decisions being made right now, both inside the Republican Party and inside state government, are going to shape the future of this state for years to come. Stay with us. You're tuned in to the Hispanic Patriot Podcast. Let's get into it. All right. So we've got the release of Tina Peters, our good friend and colleague, and we look forward to that. And if we're lucky, we may be able to get her on as a guest. I'm sure he will be in a long line.
But it is in the works, folks. It is in the works. So please stay tuned. And if you're joining us for the first time, please, why don't you take a moment to like and subscribe for all this insider information. Both me and Hugo are SEC members, and we do have a vote in this upcoming GOP chair election. And we'll be bringing you all the ground news when we are ourselves there. So we will be bringing you, again, behind the curtain. So stay tuned.
Yeah, we're hoping to get some on the scene interviews at the event, hopefully, and we pray this will be a very organized event, unlike the last one, and we will get in, do our business, and be able to go home promptly.
Or enjoy beautiful Buena Vista. Anyone viewing from Buena Vista, thank you so much. We look forward to visiting you.
Absolutely. So, what are your thoughts on the Tina Peters release? What do you?
Well, as a young person, I think that's one of the fears that people have is going into politics and literally getting arrested, and for doing something that felt right, and in a lot of contexts in a lot of different countries would be absolutely within the purview of a public official like Tina Peters was. So we young people, we just don't like the idea that we could literally become political prisoners, just by doing our jobs. And this is terrifying to us. Like, why should we give ourselves to a system which would readily throw away our lives? And that's why I think her release is so important. Another thing that this really signals, besides just, hey, you will be noticed, you will be seen, you will be helped if you are put in these situations of political imprisonment. Is all the detractors. Many people, I've heard many people say, "Oh, well, federal, the governor can't do anything." Like for example, when Scott Bottoms per se would, promised to free Tina Peters very, very clearly and without any sidestepping, said, "I will free her." They said, "Well, the governor can't do that." Well, Jared Polis just proved that he could, apparently. So, it really proves the facts for what they are, and the fact that
Who said the government couldn't do it?
many people on social media, many pundits, many people who didn't like Tina Peters, those maybe in the more establishment crowd. This was something that we were hearing in the background, and
Well, I always heard that people were saying that President Trump couldn't free her, and that's correct directly, but I can guarantee he was working behind the scenes and indirectly influencing the governor, because this was a travesty of justice, and President Trump wanted Tina, who is a 70-year-old grandmother who is suffering from various medical issues, had no business being locked up. She was not a threat to anybody.
Exactly. What the Democrats were saying is that jury of your peers, it's done and over with. And these are people who are very ignorant of how the government works, how our federal structure works. They clearly didn't pay attention in con law and things like that. But this is somebody who we had a big heart for, as Hugo said, because this was a gold star mother. This was someone who really didn't belong in the conditions she was put in. I believe she was attacked in prison at one point.
She was. Yes.
It was horrible. Nobody should be subjected to those conditions.
Yep. And then they had her in solitary confinement. The whole system was turned against her, and
that wasn't right. We're tired of seeing that.
I'm just grateful that prayers were answered and that she is coming out safely. And as I said, we hope to be among those who get to interview her, and we'll be doing our very best to gracefully and respectfully get her on the show, and let's hear it from her own mouth.
Absolutely.
So with that, we will be discussing more about the chairman election this weekend, but we have our guest that has arrived, Mr. James Wiley, and is in the green room right now. We will introduce him and proceed with the interview with James. So if you will, do the honors, Nick, and introduce James to the audience.
Oh, absolutely, and honors indeed, for this is none other than the Red Flame of Liberty. That is his nickname. I didn't give it to him, but I wish I did, because it's brilliant. And he is a Colorado native, born right here in Colorado Springs, or wherever we're broadcasting from our undisclosed location, with an MBA from Colorado State University, Pueblo. His background includes works as a political consultant, leadership roles in liberty-focused organizations, such as Project Thaler and director of Save Our Suffrage, the former executive director of the Libertarian Party of the state of Colorado, and the secretary of the Chainsaw Caucus, who we all enjoy very much so for the wonderful noise they make. He actually grew up in Kazakhstan. Really, really interesting. Witnessing the fall of the communist government there, and it really ignited his lifelong passion for defending individual sovereignty, just government, and secure elections. As a person of Polish descent myself, I really admire that. This fueled his activism against the vulnerable electronic voting systems and his recent lawsuits challenging election integrity issues. And now he has been, I don't want to say become a Republican, because many of our libertarian friends, are for La Repubblica, for the Republic at heart, and we welcome him very much so, not only to the Republican Party and this race, but also onto the Hispanic Patriot Podcast. James, wonderful to see you.
James Wiley, welcome to the Hispanic Patriot Podcast. How are you doing?
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be on with you.
Well, it's good to have you on, and I believe that you've got a great campaign going. You caught my attention at a CD1 meeting, and after hearing you speak, I said, I like that young man. So we wanted to have you on the show and introduce you to the audience because a lot of people have not heard about you, but we want to spread the word. So welcome to the Hispanic Patriot Podcast.
Yes, welcome. Absolutely.
Why don't you start with a little bit about yourself, introduce yourself to the audience, and we'll go from there. We have a few questions for you on the hot seat.
So, a red flame of liberty. I am a weapon. I am a soldier purposed for the goal of liberating the state of Colorado by any means necessary. And this political path, this project that I'm working on now, the campaign for Secretary of State and the office of Secretary of State, is where I believe I can make the most impact to secure our elections, to bring honest, trustworthy elections back into the state of Colorado, to advocate for small businesses to come back into the state of Colorado, and use my position as a torchbearer for the party and for the conservative movement. And I'm really excited to advance the libertarian nationalist movement as well, taking the ideology from the party and really bringing it home into the Republican Party, the party of true liberty, the party of freedom, as it was founded by Lincoln and really brought to prominence by Lincoln. And so that's part of my purpose. That's why I'm here. And I'm so glad that I get to share the message through your podcast and speak to all Hispanic Patriots through here.
All right.
Bueno, muchas gracias.
Yes. So, as you know, Colorado has become one of the most controversial states in the country regarding election procedures. So, what specific reforms would you implement immediately if elected?
I often say decertify the machines, but I get flack by Ken DeGraff, who's definitely the most based legislature in the state of Colorado. And so Ken will come back at me and say, well, they were never certified in the first place. I'm like, okay, thank you, Ken, that's true. And so I won't perform, to be totally accurate and correct, I will not perform the symbolic ceremonial certification that Jena does every single year for those machines, for the clerks. I will not perform that symbolic certification, but he's right. Nor could they legally be certified by HAVA and the regulations from CISA and other organizations. So decertify the machines. That means we go back to a hand count, the way it used to be done at the precinct level, involving our community members, and that's one of the key aspects that brings election into a person. Everybody knows somebody who's involved in that process. Everybody knows somebody who counted or was. By redistributing it, decentralizing it, bringing it back to the people, we can restore trust and unity in this nation. And so that's my purpose, and I believe that my major reform and restoration, more so than even reform, is what our country needs.
All right, Nick.
Well, this is something very close to my heart, especially when I look at other countries and they all have what we don't have, which is, do you support requiring proof of citizenship and voter ID for all Colorado elections?
Yes, and we need to bring back in-person voters so that we can actually start checking the IDs of people. With the mail-in ballots, you don't know if the person sending in the ballot is the same as the person who's voting. Is the same as the name that's on that ballot even, and there's no ID requirement for that submission. Back in the day with absentee ballots, that was required, that you submit a photocopy of your ID, and so we had that verification even with absentee ballots. But we need to bring people back to in-person voting in the state of Colorado, which will bring back that verification of citizenship.
Very good. We'd like to hear that.
Along those lines, as a segue to that, what is your thoughts on the SAVE Act?
It's extremely necessary. I hate to think of the federal government needing to step in to stop other states from doing illegal action and violating people's rights, but it happened before during the Civil War, and that was definitely a no government to step in to stop the violation of rights. And I think now we need to see that again with the elections. Unfortunately, the federal government does need to step in and stop certain states from lowering the standard, because every state owes it to every other state to to uphold the same standard to provide a Republican form of government, and especially in the federal elections and national elections, which every state has a common interest in the outcome of. So that's something I advocate for is the decentralization largely, but in this case, we do need federal intervention, unfortunately.
Okay. So you addressed the concerns about the mail-in ballot security. Many conservatives, of course, across the country, especially those states that have mail-in balloting, as Colorado does, believe that mail-in balloting does, in fact, create an atmosphere and an opportunity for basically cheating, and so a lot of people are disgruntled with the system because they don't feel that no matter how good a candidate we put up from the Republican side, that they're going to get a fair shot, because somewhere along the line somebody's going to have their thumb on the scale and basically manipulate the results of elections across the state, and especially in key races like major offices statewide, as well as our federal offices in the House and Senate. So how would you, or have you considered the fact that going back to eliminating mail-in ballots altogether and only allow those for military and or infirmed? That was the original way in the first place. But what is how should I put it? What is the process by which that would happen? Is that a decision? Is that a unilateral decision by the Secretary of State, or does that have to go through the legislature?
Yeah, so there's several different pieces to the elections that compound in the vulnerability that they produce for Colorado, and so each one of those pieces we need to address through different methods. Unfortunately, mail-in ballots are something that come out of a ballot initiative that people voted on. So we either need a constitutional challenge to that, or we would need the voters to vote for the mail-in ballots to go away, or for the federal government to step in and tell us what to do, I guess. Also, that's one option. But we also have issues with our voter rolls, with more registered voters in some counties than voting age adults. That could be a huge issue, and that compounds into the mail-in voting, because then a lot of people who may not exist or may not truly be allowed to vote are getting ballots, and it's easy for them to cheat the process through that method. So that's another approach to addressing the mail-in ballots, is fixing the voter registration, which will reduce the damage that could be caused by the mail-in ballots. But of course, on the other end of the mail-in ballots, there's the return aspect of them, and anybody could just stuff it into a drop box. And that's a huge security concern with mules and other things trafficking ballots. And so one response to that, one approach, is to maybe a small compromise, 50%. While I wouldn't advocate this for myself, if it was on the table, I would at least take this as a step in the right direction, is to have voter ID presented on the return end of the mail-in ballots, which is another approach. For me, let's do it all in person and stop the games. But if we could have one day, same day, holiday, in person with voter ID, paper ballots, and a hand count, those are the 5 principles that I see totally shoring up our elections environment and restoring complete trust in the elections.
Yeah, and along those lines, it comes. What comes to mind to me is the sheer ignorance of the American electorate, in that they don't understand that. I don't know the percentage, but it's a high percentage around the world, and especially in third world countries, if you will, where a national voter ID card is mandatory, and you cannot vote in those countries without that particular card. In some places, they make you stick your thumb in a inkwell so that
I like that.
you can't go and vote somewhere else. But the the it's always kind of bothered me because I'm from Peru, and Peru is a third world country. Peru just had their presidential elections, and there were 15 parties in the election. So, and it's a total chaotic situation every time they have a presidential election. In fact, as of right now, the the vote is still not completed because everybody's contesting it, and it's a quagmire. But here in this country, people that, in my opinion, people that oppose a national voter ID are people who want to cheat. There's absolutely no other reason to oppose a national voter ID card for citizens, which proves number one that you're a citizen, and number two that no one else gets to vote except citizens. And of course, the Democrats don't like that because they've got their voters entrenched on the illegal side, and they know all those votes would go away under such a system.
Or not living, as the case might be.
Yeah, that's the other thing. You know, do you know Jay Valentine? Have you ever heard of him?
Not yet.
Okay. Well, Jay is a guy who has worked on voter rolls. You mentioned earlier, and that's one of the issues as well. In Colorado, he told us when he was on our show last year, he said Colorado is not a blue state. He says if you clean up the voter rolls, Colorado is not a blue state. It is a red state. And so that to me shows, and it's amazing how many counties that are controlled by Democrats refuse to clean up their voter rolls. So who is controlling that? You know, somebody's pulling the string somewhere and saying, hey, let's not clean up those voter rolls because those elections are going to turn the other direction.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
And as I was born in Chicago myself, and James, I probably don't have to tell you about the voter fraud that goes on in Chicago, kind of the poster child of such. And, I think a lot of people want to contest our claims. So something to just address very quickly that, oh, well, voter fraud isn't real. We've proven it 9 ways and whatever have you. That's why I think this question is very important, because we can do all of this stuff, before the election. But there's also the question of auditing during and after the election to make sure it was done fairly. These are the places where, the fraudsters, if we may call them that, really excel at covering up their dirty work. We saw this very much in Chicago, that this was the area of expertise, if you will, was making sure that the crime, if you will, was not investigated, was not proven. I think we saw that with Donald Trump in 2022. So what I wanted to ask you is, what would you support in terms of independent audits, expanded public observation access, and how do we make sure that when the elections happen, that they're counted fairly as well as voted for fairly?
Yeah, some of this stuff needs to come through executive action from the Secretary of State's office, and some of it will need to come through other litigation, need to file to challenge some of these illegal procedures and whatnot, because both on the front end and the back end, whether it's the voter rolls, Libertarian Party was a part of, when I was involved in the Libertarian Party, there were several lawsuits against Jena Griswold, and one of those was in regards to the voter registration rolls. And Judicial Watch joined in one of those lawsuits, and we sued Jena, and we were able to force her to clean up a lot of the rolls. Just this year, they removed another 376,000 voters from the rolls, but there's a long ways to go. If I were to get into office, I would just delete the whole thing and start over. Like, if you're still alive, you're still in the state, come and register, and you're a citizen, you prove your ID, all of a sudden, boom, you can register, and we have clean rolls to start. That's the easiest way to fix them, of course. But also, when it comes to auditing on the other end, we have got a lot of concerns. In 2022, there were 4 lawsuits, which I was a part of, helped write them and prosecute them, that concerned the recount procedures in Colorado. And unfortunately, the Secretary of State refused to abide by the lawful recount procedures, which required at least a partial hand count in every single county. And so she promulgated her own rules, substituted a logic and accuracy test for the lawful recount comparison, pre-test for the machines, and ultimately we ended up suing her 4 times over that. The year after, they came back and they changed the law to legalize her illegal conduct. And so now we've got this law that's binding our hands and prevents us from having any kind of hand count. They made hand counts illegal in the state of Colorado. So how can we get an audit when the law prohibits us from even touching the papers with the ballots with our own hands? We definitely need some reform in that area, and I need the state senate and state house to be on my side in this. We need to win as many local races as possible. That's the biggest thing that you could do for liberty in this state. In addition to supporting the red flame of liberty, of course, also support our local candidates, because I don't want to be working there alone. I need all of them to be in office to help roll back some of these bad laws.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right. So one of the burning questions, if you will, Mr. Red Flame, is that the Tina Peters case is now at the forefront of everyone's minds with her imminent release here this coming Monday. And
Take
so many people want to know, what does this Secretary of State candidate, where does he stand with regards to the Tina Peters case and the ultimate prosecution and of course, sentencing of her for what the left calls election interference. Interesting term for them because they're we all know how guilty they are of that.
They're the
But,
kings of the sport of it, actually.
yes. What is your position, your personal position about the Tina Peters case?
I'm guilty of being a believer in the big lie, as the left calls it. So, but beyond 2020, I also believe that the 2000 election was stolen. So this should be a nonpartisan issue. For whatever reason, in 2020, it became the most partisan issue. And everybody on the left, who up until the election was talking about voting machines and the risks of voting machines, all of a sudden they were quiet. And so Tina Peters became one of the first and most public victims of this change in dynamic, to where you could no longer fight for the integrity of our elections. Anybody who questions that they were perfect in the first place is now the enemy of the state. And they targeted Tina, they set her up, and they maliciously prosecuted her. And all of a sudden, and I did work with her in the recounts. She was one of the candidates who demanded the recount, paid $250,000 for that recount. And when we went and were expecting a real recount to happen, they gave us a fake recount. The legal team I work with represented her in a lawsuit against all 64 clerks and recorders across the state of Colorado, of course, Jena Griswold as well. So I've been an advocate of hers, and to see the treatment that they brought against her is terrible. I've gotten a lot of questions about who was it that was directing her to perform these additional inspections and influence the public officials and having third parties on site. That none of that was necessary to obtain the insights which she secured, and yet she was instructed to do those things anyways. I want to know who told her to do that, why they weren't prosecuted, and mostly I want to know why there wasn't a federal prosecution on this point. There was a federal raid by the FBI of her house and many other houses, not the CBI, no, not the local SWAT. The federal FBI agents raided her house, but there was no federal indictments, no charges, nothing along those lines, no prosecution, no investigation by the federal government. As far as we know, of course, there was something going on there, but that connection to the Secretary of State's office and therefore to the prosecution by Rubenstein and these others on the local level, what role did the federal government have in this? I believe that they refused to prosecute her with federal charges in order to keep secret sources and methods. So I've got obviously a lot of questions about the situation. Unfortunately for you guys, I don't have a lot of answers yet.
Okay. Nick?
Well, a lot of conservatives view the persecution of Tina Peters as politically motivated. And, as you said before, there's a lot of moving parts to this case. But, Secretary of State's office being so critical to this question. I'd be curious of what your message is, in terms of the Tina Peters case, in terms of what was sent to election officials across Colorado. How deeply embedded is this corruption in our state? And would your administration cooperate with county clerks in seeking greater transparency and potential forensic review? How are we going to expand those capabilities?
Absolutely. We need to restore the relationship between the Secretary of State and the clerks around the state. Wayne Williams used to go county to county, all around, all 64, and talk to people and ask, how is this policy going to affect you? How can I support you and make sure that we're building Colorado together? That has not been the case for the last 8 years. They've had no visits. They've had no contact. The only time the Secretary of State comes knocking is when she's there to rip your head off. I guess as with Tina Peters. And so we need to fix that relationship and change that dynamic, that it's cooperative and collaborative as opposed to this adversarial, top-down, worst boss in the world style. And the office itself, with the whistleblowers coming out of her office in droves saying she's abusive to us, that is another big problem. I'm not going to force my election workers to sign NDAs. That is the one space when we should be encouraging whistleblowers, the most amount of whistleblowers possible. And so that's what I want to advocate for. And people like Tina Peters, who have blown the whistle, deserve whistleblower protections, deserve to be heralded as a hero of the cause and of liberty and the integrity of our country being restored. That what she was able to ultimately reveal with the databases, the 3 databases on the voting tabulator, and how they were combined and manipulated in order to produce a third database with a higher Biden percentage than otherwise would have been present. Of course, in Red County, Trump still won, but by a smaller margin than Trump deserved. And that manipulation is a huge concern for counties around the state of Colorado, that collectively that can cause a state to flip its result, shaving out a little bit here and there so you don't get caught. That's how it happened in Mesa County. That's what Tina Peters exposed, and that's what needs to be forever associated with her name, not the charges brought against her, but the crimes that she brought to light. And all the prosecution against her has been a part of the great cover-up. I think that's more important than the big lies, the great cover-up. And
Absolutely.
The cover-up is always worse than the crime. Just like with the BIOS passwords. I sued Jena over the BIOS passwords. And it was the cover-up of those BIOS passwords, statute of limitations runs this November, by the way, that is the greater crime than even the gross negligence associated with the release of those BIOS passwords.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And I'm glad that you mentioned about the work conditions in the Secretary of State's office. Us millennials are no stranger to hostile work environments, especially in places where they really should be open and transparent. So I'm glad to hear that that'll be something that you're focused on.
All right. So here at the Hispanic Patriot Podcast, of course, it's in our name. We are Hispanic, and we espouse Hispanic issues in the context of American values and citizen responsibilities. So Hispanic voters are increasingly moving towards conservative values on issues like public safety, faith, education, economic opportunity. And as Secretary of State, how can your office improve voter education and civic participation among legal Hispanic voters and first-generation Americans? Yep.
Just got a temporary lapse, folks. Don't worry. As you can see, James is traveling at the moment, so this would be
One of the dangers of mobile communication.
That's quite all right. We'll be bringing him back on in just a moment. But all of you watching for James's interview, if this is your
Am I
first
back?
time, oh, very much. I was just gonna shill for us for just a quick moment. If you would please if you haven't already, like and subscribe to the video, subscribe to the channel. We appreciate all of our new viewers.
Did you catch the question, or do you need me to repeat it?
Probably just give him a repeat, yeah.
James, can you hear us?
Oh, we're getting that together.
Okay, so as you can see, we have a a young candidate who is engaged, seems to be well connected with the issues and some of the internal activities within the Secretary of State's office. So we want you all to be connected with the candidates. We've got the primary coming up on June the 30th. Inform yourself. That's basically what we're saying, is inform yourself about the candidates. Don't look at age. Don't look at, faces or whatever. Look at solid values and solid commitments about what they intend to do as a whatever office they may be running for. So it's very important to that we have a good turnout this primary, because as James was saying, we have got to get back some of the offices, the statewide offices that Republicans have not held in quite some time. And personally, I believe that the Secretary of State's position is one of the most important offices that we can control if we can elect a good Republican like James Wiley. So pay attention to the candidates, get informed, and please vote. I mean,
Yeah, that's the biggest thing. I mean, if you learn all that information and you don't end up voting, I mean, you kind of just wasted your time. But jokes aside, folks, something that I really want to stress is that you can talk to the candidates. Like, these people are not celebrities; they're very available. In fact, part of their job is to be available, to speak to talk to engage with, and that's something that really shouldn't ever be discarded. It really should never be disregarded. Go and talk to the people you plan on voting for. And if they're inaccessible, then note that. If someone feels that they can just win their race without going to the people, note that. Without debates, note that. Politicians are people, not just politicians, because there's often a dirty word nowadays, but true statesmen care about the people. They understand the concept of the people and the nation as one of the highest ideals. And the only way to engage with the nation is to literally talk to individuals who make it up. And those who do so very, very much set themselves apart from those who hide in the basement, like our previous president. This is something to take in mind always, always.
Yes. So we're going to continue on with the show. We've got some discussion, a little bit more discussion about Tina Peters' release and what's coming up, and I believe that she's not going to be silenced. I believe that she's still got a lot of fight left in her, and we at the Hispanic Patriot intend to support her 100%. And we want to get the facts out. We want to get information out to people who may be new to Colorado, don't know the intricacies of what happened to her, and use it as a tool to understand what can happen to ordinary Americans if they speak out against corruption. And this is a lesson, I think, that as we come up on our 250th anniversary, I've been watching a lot of patriot type movies about the revolution, about the founding fathers and what they went through, what they sacrificed. And when you have a patriot like Tina Peters, who is willing to put her life and liberty on the line like she did, and then she gets run through a kangaroo court like she did, and then sentenced like some common criminal when they're letting murderers out for less, and child molesters in particular. That one's really...
Yeah, I mean, we have to also, this is a developing story of the Well County chairperson. Their bond, I think, was what, $6,500?
$6,500
For such a terrible crime, for such an unspeakable crime. This is what we had, and this is why Colorado is becoming a capital of these kind of crimes, is because of the leniency involved in releasing them after the fact. It's very, very sad because childhood innocence is just something that can never be gotten back. So these should not be $6,500 bond crimes.
And thanks to the Democrat-controlled legislature, we now are not only we've got the trifecta here. We've got the most radical abortion laws in the country. We've got a sanctuary state for illegals, including criminals, and we've got a sanctuary state for pedophiles. So wrap your head around that when you go vote. If you're voting for Democrats, that's what you're voting for.
And also, if you fail to check the box for Secretary of State, because the Secretary of State has a lot of power in this regard, quite simply because the vote is what determines whether all of this gets fixed or not. So if our voting system is compromised, we already have an uphill battle. We already have a difficult situation. So make sure, for those who enjoyed the interview, go look up James Wiley. We will try to find him at various things, ask him questions about the Hispanic issue. We loved having him on. And don't forget to vote, because, again, that office is so, so important.
Absolutely. Okay, let's talk a little bit about the fanfare that's going to take place in Buena Vista this weekend. We have now 6 candidates. We had 5. We have a late entry into the field, Mr. Darrell Phelan, who was the former vice chair of the Colorado GOP. He was elected originally along with Britta Horn and Russ Andrews as the administrative body of the Colorado GOP last year. Now, we're not going to get into all the details of what ended up being a disaster with Britta Horn, but we've got 6 candidates that are going to be up for election this Saturday. And the body, meaning the state central committee members, are going to get to listen to all 6 candidates and then cast their vote for their choice for chairman. The current vice chairman we elected last month, Mr. Eric Grossman, has been doing a bang-up job in filling in.
Yes, his last name was not just false advertisement, folks. As it turns out, he is a great man. Gross meaning great in German. Little trivia for the audience here. We appreciate you all very much.
So, this new chairman is going to have a short term. Obviously, they're going to fill the remaining term of Britta Horn. And then, depending, I guess, on who it is, I guess we'll see if they run again for re-election. So that kind of situation is going to be interesting to watch, because we got the primary June the 30th, and then we're on to the general election in November. So basically about a 5-month period there that leadership is going to hopefully whip up Republicans and help us elect and win some of these races for a change. That's really what it's all about. We need to make inroads into the House, and we need to make inroads into the Senate. And we also have a governor's race that is up for grabs. So it's very important. It's a very important election cycle, folks. All I can say to you as a voter out there is, if you can't sit down at your kitchen table and fill out a ballot and turn it in, then what are you doing as a citizen? That's your duty. That's your civic duty. Okay.
People have fought, for these rights, and we might be a little bit taking for granted this, because we've only really had 2 wars in order to secure those rights. The Revolution and the Civil War. Many countries around the world, though, have fought continuous wars in order to keep their freedom and their rights. Many including much bloodshed. So we don't want to see that. We want to honor that which we've already sacrificed. We don't want to have to sacrifice more just for the rights that our forefathers have given us.
Exactly. We just got through honoring the heroes
on Memorial Day, exactly.
On Memorial Day weekend, and for the love of God, we are Americans. We're supposed to be Americans first. And when somebody challenges your freedom, I don't care what party you're from, I'm opposed to you. Okay. And believe me, we've got some people that thought they were better than the Republican platform and the Republican ideals and values and principles. And President Trump just had a running count of endorsements where he won 100% of every one of his endorsements across the country for people who were challenging rhinos. Okay. I know some of you don't like that term, but it's an appropriate term for some. Okay. It's not for everybody, but every one of those people who were opposing the president or trying to roadblock him were removed in their primaries. They lost their primary races to challengers who have promised to stand by the America First movement and to vote for what's good for the country and stop this nonsense that has been plaguing our country for decades. So I'm very hopeful come November. I know a lot of people have this hand-wringing mentality that basically think that we're not going to win the midterm elections. But in my heart of hearts, I can't believe that the American people who elected Donald Trump overwhelmingly are going to turn around in the midterm and undo what they did 2 years ago. So please, we've got Colorado elections, we've got national elections. So you need to get acquainted. You need to find out and basically stand up and say, hey, we're done with the status quo. We're done with people who don't want to support what the president is trying to do for this country. And is the president perfect? No. But think about what we had before President Trump. Okay. Do you want those type of people to be back in control of the Congress? I don't. I don't know about you, but I don't. And if you do, then you're not a patriot. I'm sorry. You're just a fool.
No, but we do appreciate all of our Hispanic Patriots out there, including James. Absolutely, we appreciate, because as we say from the Colorado Hispanic Republicans, if you just like tacos, you're Hispanic enough for us. But but on that note, we did have a CHR forum that you can find in the description. Very much helped out by our friend Adam Dorito at the Tuxes and Tomahawks podcast. All of their information, James's information, please, you can find in the video description just below. And something that I think is very important, for this upcoming GOP chair race is the fact that
Uh-oh, folks. It's technical bug.
on.
Okay, we're having some technical issues.
Candidates. So the person who's going to support and help the candidates, I think, is very much the important person in the GOP race. And that's who I would encourage everyone to be looking at, who is SCC voters.
Yep. So we've got our duty to go do this weekend in sunny Buena Vista. Weather should be great. So no reason for Central Committee members to not make the trip. But if you have a legitimate reason for not attending, then you have the option to use your proxy. And so I think it was just I think this new administration is going to try to move away from these hybrid and or Zoom meetings, because
you'd hope so.
Because look, when you sign up to be a Central Committee member, you're committing to attending the meetings. If you cannot if you have reasons, legitimate reasons, and I'm not going to question your reasons.
Yeah, we're not Puritans here on this. Like,
yeah, for not being able to attend, that's fine.
But find a proxy. It's really not that hard to call up someone in your county and ask, "Hey, can you carry my proxy? I trust you to vote the way that that I would want you to vote." And if you are a proxy carrier, you have a duty and an honor to vote the way that your person asked you to vote for them. That's very, very huge. Is it honor and integrity in all cases?
Well, that's definitely an honor system because there's no way to control.
Yeah, trust, very much deeply trust who you pick as a proxy. Preferably, if they're voting for the same person that you are, that's helpful. But it really shouldn't be necessary. This is about showing. This really isn't about winning. It is about winning, but the real thing we're trying to do here is make sure the body is represented. As an SEC member myself, I put a lot of stock into the body. I don't think that the chairperson honestly should have power over the body. The chairperson is the conductor of this orchestra. He's not, the flute player, violinist, and celloist all at once. Some people may try to be, but ultimately God made us how he made us so that we can work as a symphony, as harmony. This is why we very much reject the leftist idea of equality in favor of harmony. Because, I don't want to make monkeys swim and fish climb trees, Hugo. That doesn't sound very smart to me. Equality in that case sounds very dumb. So definitely we want to make sure that we're having everyone in harmony. So let's pick a chair of people who will bring harmony to the party.
Yeah, well, unlike what the left thinks, equality doesn't make everyone equal.
No, it's actually very frustratingly grinding.
That's what they want, is everyone to be the same, to be mind-numb robots, just like in the movie 1984. If you've never seen that movie, it's a good time to go watch it.
Yeah, the visual of it, the book is brilliant. Like the book, everyone says book over movie, but guys, the 1984 movie, the visual of it is very, very compelling, I will say. Yeah. Can you guys imagine if me and Hugo had to be equal in all cases? That'd be terrible. Like he'd have to either grow out his hair or I'd have to cut mine, and it's so many things. It'd be terrible.
Absolutely, but folks, we've got a lot on the agenda for this summer. We're hitting the summer now.
Oh yeah, it's not even the end of the primary yet. Look how things are heating up.
Yep, and so first step for you as a voter is the primary on June the 30th. Do your duty. Vote like your life depended on it, because it really literally does in most cases.
Your republic certainly does, and the republic is what we all live under. So in a sense, it's not just transitive property. It really is the heart and soul of these things.
Yep. And keep an eye on what's going on, of course, around the world. There's some good news coming out of Washington and the administration. And I pray for peace every day. I pray for resolutions, and I pray that we can get our country back to where we need to be. But understand that the president is doing his very best for you and me. And if we're suffering a little temporary pain, I think we can do that.
Well, and at the end of the day, us young people also have to step up and, become citizens in our country again. We should never feel left out. We should never feel like this is not a system not made for us. It might be a broken system, but it doesn't mean that we can't, do what we need to in order to take control of it. And so I want to ask everyone to look out for a short that I'll be posting. We are returning the Millennial Minute, and very much proudly so. And we have a very inspiring and hopeful message for especially all of you kids who know what the streets of America is like. So look out for that.
Absolutely. All right, folks, we're up against the clock. Another great show is concluding. We hope you enjoyed the information we put out tonight. And as always, please consider subscribing, liking, and contributing.
It would make us very happy.
It would help us tremendously to grow this show and the message. And we welcome your comments.
Absolutely.
Thank you, everyone. Good night. God bless America. God bless our troops.
God bless Colorado. Thank you all.